Discover Canada Study Questions. For more practice, go to CanadianCitizenshipTestKit.com.
Who first suggested that Canada be given responsible government? A. Lord Pembroke. B. Lord Macdonald. C. Lord Durham. D. Lord Duncan. The correct answer is C. Lord Durham.
Which type of court deals with matters concerning the federal government? A. The Canada Court. B. The National Court. C. The Federal Court. D. The Government Court. The correct answer is C. The Federal Court.
What is a bylaw? A. A law that is made by the government. B. A law that only affects the local community where it is made. C. A law that is made by the people. D. A law that is only for a single province. The answer is B. A law that only affects the local community where it is made. Which province is home to some of the world's richest deposits of fossils? A. Alberta. B. Saskatchewan. C. Manitoba. D. British Columbia. The correct answer is A. Alberta.
What does the phrase, brethren dwelling together in unity, refer to? A. The fact that Canada and the USA have close ties and common interests. B. The fact that a lot of families have members on both sides of the Canada-USA border. C. The fact that Fathers of Confederation and the American Founding Fathers were in fact related to each other. D. The fact that Canada and the USA sometimes disagree on important matters. The correct answer is A. The fact that Canada and the USA have close ties and common interests.
Why was the Bank of Canada created in 1934? A. To compete with banks in other countries. B. To act as a national bank. C. To bring stability to the Canadian financial system. D. To store the government's gold. The correct answer is C. To bring stability to the Canadian financial system.
Which police forces have a process by which people can bring their concerns about the police to the attention of the police? A. This does not exist in Canada because it is not necessary. B. Almost all police forces. C. Only the RCMP. D. Some municipal police forces. The correct answer is B. Almost all police forces. What was the result of the 1980 Quebec referendum on separation? A. A majority of Quebecers wanted to remain part of Canada. B. A majority of Quebecers voted that Canada was the best country in the world. C. A majority of Quebecers did not vote, so the referendum was cancelled. D. A majority of Quebecers voted to change the language of the province to English. The correct answer is A. A majority of Quebecers wanted to remain part of Canada. Which of these provinces is bordered by the Great Lakes? A. Quebec. B. New Brunswick. C. Manitoba. D. Ontario. The correct answer is D. Ontario. What happens if somebody engages in gender-based violence? A. They will be charged with a crime, and if found guilty, they will be punished. B. It is up to each ethnic community to decide how to treat the other members of their community. C. It is up to each family to decide how to treat the other members of their family. D. Gender-based violence is allowed under Canadian law. The correct answer is A. They will be charged with a crime, and if found guilty, they will be punished.
Which of these sets of numbers describes the size of the NAFTA trading bloc in 2008? A. 250 million people and over $10 billion in merchandise trade. B. 640 million people and over $100 trillion in merchandise trade. C. 444 million people and over $1 trillion in merchandise trade. D. 1 trillion people and over $1.5 trillion in merchandise trade. The correct answer is C. 444 million people and over $1 trillion in merchandise trade.
What does habeas corpus guarantee? A. Freedom from arbitrary arrest. B. The right to speak to a lawyer for free. C. The right to be arrested by the police. D. Freedom from torture. The correct answer is A. Freedom from arbitrary arrest. What four principles is the Canadian legal system based on? A. The rule of law, freedom under the law, democratic principles, and due process. B. The rule of freedom, democracy under the law, legal principles, and due process. C. The rule of law, freedom from the law, quasi-democratic principles, and due process. D. The rule of law, habeas corpus, democratic principles, and Magna Carta. The correct answer is A. The rule of law, freedom under the law, democratic principles, and due process.
Today, who may vote in Canadian elections? A. Everybody who is born in Canada and who is over the age of 18. B. Canadian citizens who are over the age of 18. C. Permanent residents and citizens who are over the age of 18. D. everybody who lives in Canada and who is over the age of 18. The correct answer is B, Canadian citizens who are over the age of 18.
Which of these is an example of a provincial responsibility? A. Currency. B. Defense. C. Citizenship. D. Municipal government. The correct answer is D. Municipal government. What is Canada's most popular spectator sport? A. Baseball. B. Canadian football. C. Hockey. D. Basketball. The correct answer is C. Hockey.
What is the capital city of Ontario? A. Ottawa. B. Hamilton. C. Toronto. D. London. The correct answer is C. Toronto.
What are the years of the Korean War? A. 1950 to 1953. B. 1956 to 1959. C. 1953 to 1956. D. 1959 to 1962. The correct answer is A. 1950 to 1953. In 1814, Major General Robert Ross led an expedition from Nova Scotia that burned the White House in Washington, D.C. Why? A. To make the Americans want to end the war quickly. B. To settle a personal grievance that he had with the American president. C. In retaliation for the burning of York, now called Toronto. D. To get back at the Americans for invading Canada. The correct answer is C. In retaliation for the burning of New York, now called Toronto. How does Canada maintain its high standard of living? A. By producing everything we need to live. B. By saving our money. C. By growing our own food. D. By engaging in trade with other nations. The correct answer is D. By engaging in trade with other nations.
How are laws useful to society? A. They explain every detail of how Canadians must live. B. They let police decide which laws to enforce. C. They give people rules to follow. D. They provide a peaceful way to settle disputes. The correct answer is D. They provide a peaceful way to settle disputes. What is the difference between the role of the sovereign and that of the Prime Minister? A. The sovereign is the head of state and is represented by the Governor-General, while the Prime Minister is the head of the government and is represented by the ministers of the Crown. B. The sovereign is the head of state, and the Prime Minister is the head of the government, but they must work together. C. The sovereign is the head of state and has very little real power, while the Prime Minister is the head of the government and is quite powerful. D. The sovereign is the head of state and is quite powerful, while the Prime Minister is the head of the government and has very little real power. The correct answer is C. The sovereign is the head of state and has very little real power, while the Prime Minister is the head of the government and is quite powerful. What was entrenched in the Constitution in 1982? A. The Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. B. The Canadian Charter of Liberty and Pursuit of Happiness. C. The Canadian Charter of Liberties and Privileges. D. The Canadian Charter of Political Forwardism. The correct answer is A. The Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms.
Where was Port Royal established? A. Acadia, present-day Prince Edward Island. B. Acadia, present-day New Brunswick. C. Acadia, present-day Nova Scotia. D. Acadia, present-day Quebec. The correct answer is C. Acadia, present-day Nova Scotia. Which two provinces have provincial police forces? A. Nova Scotia and Newfoundland. B. Alberta and British Columbia. C. Ontario and Quebec. D. Manitoba and Prince Edward Island. The correct answer is C. Ontario and Quebec. What happens if the Cabinet loses the confidence of the House? A. They must resign, which normally results in new elections. B. They must choose a new Prime Minister. C. They must try to pass the same bill again. D. They must let the other political parties try to form a government. The correct answer is A. They must resign, which normally results in new elections.
Which of these is an example of a federal responsibility? A. Transportation. B. Property rights. C. Social and community health. D. Defense. The correct answer is D. Defense. Who proclaimed the amended Constitution in 1982? A. The Supreme Court. B. The Governor-General. C. Queen Elizabeth II. D. Prime Minister Pierre Elliott Trudeau. The correct answer is C. Queen Elizabeth II. Which of these phrases describes how Canada is governed? A. An organized system of laws. B. Principles that judges must interpret. C. Legalism. D. laws must be followed by most people. The correct answer is A, an organized system of laws.
Where in the world does Canada rank in terms of size? A. Canada is the largest country on Earth. B. Canada is the second largest country on Earth. C. Canada is the third largest country on Earth. D. Canada is the fourth largest country on Earth. The correct answer is B. Canada is the second largest country on Earth.
When was the French version of Canada's national anthem first sung? A. 1967. B. 1867. C. 1905. D. 1880. The correct answer is D. 1880.
What are the three main objectives of the Official Languages Act? A. Equality of all languages in Parliament, maintain and support large language minority groups, and promote equality of English and French in Canadian society. B. Equality of English, French, and Aboriginal languages in Parliament, maintain and support all language minority groups, and promote equality of English and French in Canadian society. C. Equality of English and French everywhere in Canada, maintain official language minority groups, and promote equality of English and French around the world. D. Equality of English and French in Parliament, maintain and support official language minority groups, and support equality of English and French in Canadian society. The correct answer is D. Equality of English and French in Parliament, maintain and support official language minority groups, and promote equality of English and French in Canadian society.
How is the Canadian-USA border sometimes described? A. The world's longest undefended border. B. The world's easiest border to cross. C. The most traded border in the world. D. The border with the longest wait times in the world. The correct answer is A. The world's longest undefended border. A key aspect of multiculturalism is that A. Canadians should try to live in communities of people who are like themselves. B. The two main cultures and languages of Canada are English and French. C. Everybody in Canada should know the language of their ancestors. D. Canadians respect the gift of one another's presence. The correct answer is D. Canadians respect the gift of one another's presence.
What are the people who are elected in federal elections called? A. Members of the House of Assembly, MHAs. B. Members of the National Assembly, MNAs. C. Members of the Legislative Assembly, MLAs. D. Members of Parliament, MPs. The correct answer is D. Members of Parliament, MPs. What was the first document that guaranteed territorial rights for Aboriginals? A. Royal Proclamation, 1763. B. Charter of Rights and Freedoms, 1982. C. Quebec Act, 1774. D. British North America Act, 1867. The correct answer is A. Royal Proclamation, 1763.
What does the Official Languages Act guarantee? A. French and English services in the federal government across Canada. B. French and English services in the federal and provincial governments across Canada. C. French and English services at all businesses across Canada. D. French and English services in all places and in all ways across Canada. The correct answer is A. French and English services in the federal government across Canada. Which of these is an example of a responsibility of citizenship? A. Learning to play Canadian sports. B. Saluting the flag of Canada. C. Serving on a jury. D. Opening a shop for people from your country. The correct answer is C. Serving on a jury.
How long has the crown been a symbol of the state in Canada? A. 400 years. B. Since 1867. C. 200 years. D. Since 1982. The correct answer is A. 400 years.
How is the Member of Parliament for an electoral district chosen? A. The candidate who receives the most votes becomes a Member of Parliament for that electoral district. B. The candidate who is part of the winning party becomes the Member of Parliament for that electoral district. C. The candidate who receives the most votes becomes the Member of Parliament for that electoral district if the Prime Minister approves. D. The three candidates who receive the most votes have a second election to choose the winner. The correct answer is A. The candidate who receives the most votes becomes the Member of Parliament for that electoral district. What were the years that the Acadians were deported from their homeland? A. 1904 to 1911. B. 1812 to 1818. C. 1705 to 1713. D. 1755 to 1763. The correct answer is D. 1755 to 1763. In Canada, who is not required to always follow the law? A. Police officers. B. Judges. C. Politicians. D. Everyone is required to follow the law. The correct answer is D. Everyone is required to follow the law.
What is the name of the international organization that worked to relax restrictive trading policies after the Great Depression? A. Business Trade Circle. B. International Trade Boundaries Commission. C. General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade. D. Trade Council. The correct answer is C. General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade.
What types of matters are the responsibility of the federal government? A. Matters of national, local, and international concern. B. Matters of national, provincial, and international concern. C. Matters of national and provincial concern. D. Matters of national and international concern. The correct answer is D. Matters of national and international concern.
Approximately how many square kilometers are there in Canada? A. 20 million. B. 10 million. C. 7 million. D. 34 million. The correct answer is B. 10 million. Which of these areas are local governments responsible for? A. Education, healthcare, and property rights. B. Urban planning, streets and roads, and garbage removal. C. Policing, the military, and firefighting. D. Environment, snow removal, and national defense. The correct answer is B. Urban planning, streets and roads, and garbage removal. What did the Constitutional Act grant to Canada for the first time? A. Responsible government. B. Elected legislative assemblies. C. Appointed legislative assemblies. D. A Governor General. The correct answer is B. Elected legislative assemblies.
Which Canadian province is known for its mining, fishing, fruit orchards, and wine industry? A. British Columbia. B. Nova Scotia. C. New Brunswick. D. Ontario. The correct answer is A. British Columbia. In addition to appeal court and trial courts, what other types of provincial courts exist? A. Family courts, offense courts, and small claims courts. B. Family courts, traffic courts, and neighbor courts. C. Family courts, traffic courts, and small claims courts. D. Family courts, traffic courts, and municipal courts. The correct answer is C. Family courts, traffic courts, and small claims courts.
With regards to the Québécois, what did the House of Commons recognize in 2006? A. That the Québécois also speak English. B. That the Québécois form a nation within a united Canada. C. That the Québécois are a separate part of a united Canada. D. That the Québécois speak only French. The correct answer is B. That the Québécois form a nation within a united Canada.
What is a referendum? A. An important matter that all citizens have the right to vote on. B. An important matter where all citizens vote through their MP. C. A vote within a single electoral district to choose a member of Parliament. D. A vote within a single electoral district where all citizens vote directly on an important matter. The correct answer is A. An important matter that all citizens have the right to vote on. How are lieutenants general chosen? A. They are appointed by the Governor-General on advice from the British Parliament. B. They are appointed by the Governor-General on advice from the Provincial Cabinet. C. They are appointed by the Governor-General on advice from the Prime Minister. D. They are appointed by the Governor-General on advice from the Premier of the province. The correct answer is C. They are appointed by the Governor-General on advice from the Prime Minister.
In addition to the mayor, who else is part of local councils? A. Assistant mayors. B. Councillors or aldermen. C. Members of local government, MLGs. D. Members of Parliament, MPs. The correct answer is B. Councillors or aldermen.
How many nations were part of the Iroquois Confederation? A. 5, later 6. B. 6, later 7. C. 4, later 5. D. 7, later 6. The correct answer is A. 5, later 6.
Which innovation is Sir Sandford Fleming credited with? A. Newfoundland's half time zone. B. Daylight savings time. C. Standard time zones. D. The 24-hour clock. The correct answer is C. Standard time zones. What are the three branches of government? A. The Conservatives, the New Democratic Party, and the Liberals. B. The Prime Minister, the Cabinet, and the backbenchers. C. Executive, Legislative, and Judicial. D. Federal, Provincial, and Municipal. The correct answer is C. Executive, Legislative, and Judicial.
Why are Anglophones generally referred to as English Canadians? A. This is just a way to distinguish them from Francophones. B. English Canadians is just a different way to say Anglophones. C. The basic way of life in English-speaking areas was established by hundreds of thousands of English, Welsh, Scottish, and Irish settlers. D. Because English is the language that people in these areas speak. The correct answer is C. The basic way of life in English-speaking areas was established by hundreds of thousands of English, Welsh, Scottish, and Irish settlers.
What effect did the arrival of European traders, missionaries, soldiers, and colonists have on the Aboriginals? A. The arrival of the Europeans had only positive effects on the native way of life. B. The arrival of the Europeans had a short-term effect on the native way of life. C. The arrival of the Europeans had relatively little effect on the Aboriginals' way of life. D. The arrival of the Europeans changed the native way of life forever. The correct answer is D. The arrival of the Europeans changed the native way of life forever.
Which of these Second World War campaigns did Canadian soldiers take part in? A. The liberation of Poland. B. The liberation of China. C. The liberation of Italy. D. The battles in the Pacific Ocean. The correct answer is C. The liberation of Italy. What is the only part of the original center block that did not burn down in 1916? A. The House of Commons. B. The library. C. The Senate chamber. D. The office block. The correct answer is B. The library. Which province has 40% of the arable land in Canada? A. Manitoba. B. Ontario. C. Alberta. D. Saskatchewan. The correct answer is D. Saskatchewan.
What is the G8? A. The 8 largest countries by area in the world. B. A famous group of Canadian artists. C. A group of leading industrialized countries. D. The 8 largest countries by area in the Americas. The correct answer is C. A group of leading industrialized countries. In 2014, Russia was suspended from the group, so it reverted to being the G7, as it had been before Russia was added in 1997.
Where does habeas corpus come from? A. History and tradition. B. English common law. C. French civil code. D. Quebec Act. The correct answer is B. English common law. Who can make you tell them how you voted? A. Your boss. B. A translator. C. A family member. D. Nobody. The correct answer is D. Nobody. Where are the soldiers, sailors, and airmen who died serving Canada remembered? A. On plaques in the cities or towns where they grew up. B. In the books of remembrance in the Peace Tower. C. On the National War Memorial in Ottawa. D. In libraries around the country. The correct answer is B. In the books of remembrance in the Peace Tower. What is the approximate number of refugees who came to Canada from Vietnam after the Vietnam War? A. 80,000. B. 50,000. C. 60,000. D. 70,000. The correct answer is B. 50,000. What happens during the first reading of a new bill? A. Members can make other amendments. B. The bill is considered read for the first time and it is printed. C. Members debate the bill's principles. D. Committee members study the bill clause by clause. The correct answer is B. The bill is considered read for the first time and it is printed. When did Mexico join Canada and the USA in NAFTA? A. 1990. B. 1996. C. 1994. D. 2001. The correct answer is C. 1994.
Which of these words best describes the type of ballot we use in Canada? A. Chad. B. Public. C. Voting. D. Secret. The correct answer is D. Secret.
What is the best definition of a responsibility? A. A responsibility is something that you should always try to avoid. B. A responsibility is something you must do, like following the law. C. A responsibility is something you are allowed to do, such as driving a car. D. A responsibility is something people want to do, but cannot. The correct answer is B. A responsibility is something you must do, like following the law. When was old age security devised? A. 1927. B. 1932. C. 1937. D. 1922. The correct answer is A. 1927. When an election is called, who does Elections Canada mail a voter information card to? A. Everybody over the age of 18 in Canada. B. Every citizen in Canada. C. Every person living in Canada. D. Everybody whose name is on the National Register of Electors. The correct answer is D. Everybody whose name is on the National Register of Electors. Where do the RCMP enforce federal laws? A. In rural areas across Canada. B. Throughout Canada. C. In Canada and around the world. D. In the jail system. The correct answer is B. Throughout Canada.
Which Canadian province is situated in the Appalachian Mountain Range? A. Alberta. B. Nova Scotia. C. New Brunswick. D. Ontario. The correct answer is C. New Brunswick.
What does the phrase ordered liberty mean? A. People must follow the government. B. Freedom is liberty. C. There is freedom with no limits. D. There is freedom, but with certain limits. The correct answer is D. There is freedom, but with certain limits.
What is the capital city of Nova Scotia? A. Truro. B. Annapolis. C. Halifax. D. Antigonish. The correct answer is C. Halifax.
What is the name given to the time when 2/3 of Acadians were deported from their homeland? A. The Great Displacement. B. The Great Move. C. The Great Relocation. D. The Great Upheaval. The correct answer is D. The Great Upheaval.
What is Canada's motto? A. Amare usque ad mare. B. Tempus fugit. C. Cogito ergo sum. D. Errare humanum est. The correct answer is A. Amare usque ad mare. Which term best describes Canada's political organization? A. Democratic monarchy. B. Constitutional republic. C. Democratic exceptionalism. D. Constitutional monarchy. The correct answer is D. Constitutional monarchy. Why is volunteering a good idea? A. Volunteering is an excellent way to gain useful skills and develop friends and contacts. B. Volunteering is necessary in all Canadian schools, especially those that teach heritage languages. C. Volunteering is expected of all immigrants. D. Volunteering is an excellent way to earn some money and to pay taxes. The correct answer is A. Volunteering is an excellent way to gain useful skills and develop friends and contacts. What is Canada's largest city? A. Calgary. B. Montreal. C. Vancouver. D. Toronto. The correct answer is D. Toronto.
Who appoints the Governor General? A. The Sovereign, on advice from the Cabinet. B. The Sovereign, on advice from the British Parliament. D. The Sovereign, on advice from the Prime Minister. D. The Sovereign, who decides on his or her own. The correct answer is C. The Sovereign, on advice from the Prime Minister.
When did Acadian culture die? A. In the early 1900s. B. Shortly after the Great Upheaval. C. Acadian culture is flourishing today. D. In the mid-1800s. The correct answer is C. Acadian culture is flourishing today.
Which of these best describes the responsibilities of the Cabinet? A. They control all of the money that government spends. B. They propose all new laws. C. They prepare the budget and propose most new laws. D. They must keep the House of Commons happy. The correct answer is C. They prepare the budget and propose most new laws. Which part of the Parliament buildings was destroyed by fire? A. The library. B. The center block. C. The east block. D. The west block. The correct answer is B. The center block. What is the significance of November 20th? A. Sir John A. Macdonald Day. B. Sir Wilfrid Laurier Day. C. Victoria Day. D. Remembrance Day. The correct answer is B. Sir Wilfrid Laurier Day. What happens during the second reading of a new bill? A. The bill receives royal assent after being passed by both houses. B. Members debate the bill's principles. C. Committee members study the bill clause by clause. D. Members can make other amendments. The correct answer is B. Members debate the bill's principles.
About what percentage of First Nations peoples live on reserves? A. About half. B. About 3/4. C. About 1/3. D. Almost all. The correct answer is A, about half.
Why was warfare between Aboriginal groups common at the time that Europeans arrived? A. Aboriginals were competing for prestige. B. Aboriginals were competing for land and resources. C. Aboriginals were competing for land. D. Aboriginals were competing for land, resources, and prestige. The correct answer is D. Aboriginals were competing for land, resources, and prestige.
Which of these sets of numbers describes the size of the NAFTA trading bloc in 2008? A. 250 million people and over $10 billion in merchandise trade. B. 640 million people and over $100 trillion in merchandise trade. C. 444 million people and over $1 trillion in merchandise trade. D. 1 trillion people and over $1.5 trillion in merchandise trade. The correct answer is C. 444 million people and over $1 trillion in merchandise trade.
What percentage of Canadian exports are sold to the USA? A. More than 75%. B. Less than 40%. C. Approximately 50%. D. Approximately 85%. The correct answer is A. More than 75%.
What was Terry Fox's run called? A. East to West Run. B. Marathon of Hope. C. The Long Run. D. Canada Marathon. The correct answer is B. Marathon of Hope.
What is the best definition of the right to freedom of association? A. The right to join a group or organization. B. The right to join and leave a group or organization. C. The right to be part of an organized religion. D. The right to choose the food you eat and how to prepare it. The correct answer is B. The right to join and leave a group or organization.
How many working Canadians now have jobs in service industries? A. More than 90%. B. More than 75%. C. Approximately 70%. D. Approximately 50%. The correct answer is B. More than 75%.
Today, who does the term Aboriginal peoples refer to? A. Indians, Inuit, and Métis. B. Indians and Inuit. C. Aboriginals, Inuit, and Métis. D. Indians and Métis. The correct answer is A. Indians, Inuit, and Métis.
What is another name for a provincial trial court? A. Court of Criminal Activities. B. Court of Trial. C. Court of Queen's Bench. D. Court of the Province. The correct answer is C. Court of Queen's Bench.
What did Queen Elizabeth II celebrate in 2012? A. Her Diamond Jubilee. B. Her 75th birthday. C. The 200th anniversary of the War of 1812. D. 50 years as sovereign. The correct answer is A. Her Diamond Jubilee. What is NAFTA? A. North American Free Tariff Arbitration, the body that tries to free North American companies from tariffs. B. North American Financial Trading Arguments, the court that settles trade disputes in North America. C. North American Free Trade Agreement, a trade agreement between Canada, the USA, and Mexico. D. North American Financial Toll Agreement, the document that sets the taxes and tariffs for trade in North America. The correct answer is C. North American Free Trade Agreement, a trade agreement between Canada, the USA, and Mexico. In 2020, NAFTA was replaced by the Canada-US-Mexico Agreement.
How does Canadian law treat men and women? A. Men are expected to take care of the women and their family. B. Men and women are treated fairly, but differently. C. There are certain areas that favor men and certain areas that favor women. D. In Canada, men and women are equal under the law. The correct answer is D. In Canada, men and women are equal under the law. What were the dates of the South African War? A. 1899 to 1902. B. 1897 to 1903. C. 1890 to 1905. D. 1897 to 1901. The correct answer is A. 1899 to 1902. Discover Canada study questions. For more practice, go to CanadianCitizenshipTestKit.com.